Does that look good, Shigeru Miyamoto? Now, the commission's probably going to be like 2,000 yen, but let's talk. You know my email. Okay, that actually wasn't a commission, but, just getting ready. Down the road, he might, I might be more of the music composition artist, but, honestly, looking at that picture I did make, which, yeah, it wasn't a commission. Maybe one day. Yeah, draw a reprint. Nintendo wants it for the official Metroid art book. But that was made in 2006 in my reading class. Miss Ashby Welter, one of the greatest teachers I've ever had, super kind, down to earth, and for a 6th grader, that's pretty incredible to have. I mean, it's great to have a good teacher, but middle school is a huge new landscape, at least for Americans. To this day, it is where usually 6th grade is when middle school starts. That is when, in my case, I went to an elementary school, and the system is, it's where I am. There's 2 big high schools, and the 2 big high schools are made up from basically 2 middle schools, and those 2 middle schools are made up of around 4 elementary schools each. So the process of going to one elementary school to a new school that has 3 other elementary schools, that's a lot of new kids, right? And so in the world of like social landscaping, people are making new friends, making new enemies. So to have a kind teacher help kids out as they go to this new landscape of education and social life, pretty big. And so I got into that reading class, and she was so cool. She was also my PAC, which is kind of like your homeroom teacher and science teacher, and she allowed us to just read basically anything, obviously safe for work, but she let me read my Metroid Prime Hunters guidebook as reading material. And this wasn't just I don't care type reading class. This was I was actually surprised because it was like the highest scored reading class. So we all take the SRI test at the beginning of the year, and I did not do good grade-wise in 6th grade, like C/D average. But so I was really shocked when I got into the highest scored like reading class. So with that context in mind, a lot of kids reading like literature, and a lot of trying to push themselves in reading like novels and stuff like that. And she still let me read my Metroid Prime Hunters guidebook, which is awesome because I've thought about it more, and not only was she a cool teacher, but that guidebook, I love Metroid Prime Hunters. Yeah, it's pretty obvious with the username and all these Spire related things, and shoutouts to Kubashi for drawing this. I know Orpheon was selling some merchandise with that. I think he still is. But yeah, great piece of art. It's also my Discord avatar. But Metroid Prime Hunters influential to me, and so I thought about it more on how this teacher let me read that guidebook. But by reading that guidebook, I was further immersed in how cool the game series is. And so the fact that the game was so cool and the teacher let me read the book but also draw this, like we had free reading time, and so during free reading time I was reading. It's basically almost like taking notes of what you're reading. So this is kind of its own translation, and I'll post a higher scan too. I definitely wanted to scan this and preserve it because this 6th grade 2006 piece of art was me loving this universe, having fun, and the game just turned 20, and it's been fun looking back and playing the game and talking with so many people about what this game means to people. It is Metroid Prime Hunters is a love letter to the Quake arena shooters and also the golden era of Metroid. Metroid Prime and Metroid Zero Mission came out in 2002, and it kickstarted what's considered the golden era. And so it's basically almost every year there was a new Metroid game. And the golden era ended with Super Smash Bros. Brawl, which is, talk about a grand finale. I mean, they had all the Prime Hunters as trophies in that game. Forget Orpheon and Norfair were new stages. They brought back Brintstar. It was a love letter to Metroid in an already love letter golden era. And then I think the final polish was definitely Metroid Prime Trilogy a bit after. Regardless, I'm living in the midst of it, 2006, and got into Metroid because of Metroid Prime Hunters. I got that Nintendo Power issue back in 5th grade, around 20 years ago, earlier. And I was like, whoa! I was like, this looks so cool, look at the art, right? And, obviously I thought all of them were cool, and I looked at Spire and I'm like, dang, I really like Spire. Again, I liked them all, but that's kind of a testament is, Andrew Jones and Richard Verodi put so much work into these new characters. Like, Nintendo basically said, hey, we're making a new system, the DS. Metroid is really big right now. We think that pushing a Metroid game on the DS is the perfect way to demonstrate all the tech that we're going to push, like microphones, stylus, using the stylus to whether it's aim or just use touch controls, online play, wireless play. Perfect match made in heaven. And Nintendo trusts Richard Verodi with his creative intentions. Nintendo software technology was, they never made a Metroid game before. And Nintendo trusted them like they trusted Retro Studios. And so Richard Verodi took the job seriously. He could have made 6 palette swaps of Samus, and the game probably still would have been pretty good. It would have been like, oh, it's a fun multiplayer mode. But he went out of his way to make 6 highly distinct parallels to Samus. And again, last year we celebrated the 20th anniversary of Star Wars Battlefront 2. And next year is TF2's 20th anniversary, and this trio they definitely are the trailblazers for the character shooter subgenre. Nowadays, there's quite a few FPS games that have different characters you pick with different abilities, and it existed before. Team Fortress as the Quake mod, Team Fortress Classic, right? And it's cool. It's cool to see those early character-based first-person shooters. But I think it was this trio trifecta year of Star Wars Battlefront 2, Metroid Prime Hunters TF2 from 2005 to 2007 that it got so many people to start working on their own versions of this. Overwatch is directly inspired by TF2. To this day, there are people that just say, oh, I loved playing Metroid Prime Hunters growing up. The Star Wars Battlefront 2 is still considered one of the best Star Wars games out there, let alone, FPS. Technically, it's also going to be a third-person shooter, but regardless, there's something that's connecting these 3 games, and it's good, genuine effort. They put effort into all the distinct characters. Again, Metroid Prime Hunters could have been Samus with multiple Samus recolors, but they didn't do that. Not only did they make distinct designs for all these Prime Hunters, with all these abilities like Candon scrambling your vision, Noxus freezing you, Trace being able to cloak, Spire catching you on fire, Weevil adding a higher explosive radius for his battle hammer, Silex, siphoning off life with his shock coil, Samus getting homing missiles. And that's just scratching the surface. All these Prime Hunters have distinct heads-up displays, like menus that remind me a lot of like the early kind of Fallout games. There's just a lot of detail there. They all have their own like jumping sounds, and this is in multiplayer. You see the Prime Hunters in single player, and this is a DS game. It's crazy to me that what I'm talking about, TF2, Star Wars Battlefront 2, those are games on the computer, so they have a lot more file space, and they used it well. Obviously, there's still limitations back then, but the fact that you're telling me this game and its demo were on the DS is pretty incredible. The demo came out in 2004. I got it while I was in 4th grade. DS for Christmas with Mario 64 DS and this game, and it was great. Again, it kind of was showcasing what the DS was capable of. And then what it was capable of, and then Prime Hunters added more. I was like, whoa, Nintendo could connect online, thanks to Mario Kart DS, Animal Crossing Wild World, Tony Hawk's American Skateland, showing that the DS can connect online. They had the Rival Radar, which was like the early version of the Street Pass. They had DS Download Play, which with first time I didn't know about it first, but I learned about DS Download with Mario 64 DS. Crazy that you can download a game to play against someone. DS was way ahead of its time, and it really is. It's underappreciated, not just for the technical marvel and the sheer amount of effort put into the characters for Prime Hunters. The gameplay is fun. I mentioned how it's similar to arena shooters like Quake. And Quake is all about, super fast action, trying to get kills, usually pretty fast. First person to X amount of kills wins the game is usually, it's called deathmatch. And Metroid Prime Hunters takes that and it keeps Metroid's DNA. All these Prime Hunters can go into their equivalent of the Morph Ball form, which basically serves as your mobility and melee form. And so it never gets old. Going into the Dial-Lange form of Spire and coming out of that form, the sound effects are cool. What a awesome, fun game. It's fun. I think sometimes people get so caught up in the game industry where it has to be these super detailed things on a character's face. We got to make sure all the pores are detailed. And unfortunately, I do think sometimes stock owners are pressuring that we forget that at its core, video games are artistic expressions that also can be enjoyed, and people can have fun, interactive fun in a form of art. It's so cool that I can play as Spire and my friend can play as Noxus and we can just fight for hours online. It's fun that I can get home, get off the bus from middle school, and regardless of my grades at the time, I can get home, get on the couch, play online with friends or new people. Make new friends, right? PSA, do your homework. But, it is, it's not just, people love that kind of 80s, 90s vaporwave, synthwave aesthetic. I see a lot of people younger than me wishing that they lived in the 80s and 90s. But, if you were born in the 2000s, you had your own era of really cool stuff. In fact, I kind of call the 2000s the cool era. Bionicle, Metroid Prime Hunters, Linkin Park was doing well. Naruto was really being pushed on the forefront. How many people watched Gaara vs. Rock Lee, Kakashi vs. Zabuza, right? So you're seeing this era that's pushing kind of it rides off the momentum of the 90s being fun, but there's also this kind of serious edge to it. Not that the 90s didn't have that, but yeah, again, Metroid Prime Hunters was cool. These characters were cool. They got me to buy the game. That cover, Samus was already cool herself. So the fact that, again, Richard Verodi wrote up these 6 distinct parallels to her, and then Andrew Jones from Retro Studios, which Retro Studios should get a lot of credit too for taking a big risk as an American studio with an IP like Metroid. Made one of the best games ever made, Metroid Prime, and then even more of the best games ever made were made in that sub-series. So Andrew Jones comes over and helps Richard Verodi. He draws up all 6 of these Prime Hunters, and I mean, just incredible designs, like 11 out of 10 designs to the point that they don't show up a lot, but to this day, people are like, wow, these characters are cool. What games are they in? Oh my gosh, they should be in more media. I hear that a lot. Metroid Prime 4 had Silex. People were like, wow, he looks really cool. And, the fact that his design comes from a 2006 game. Obviously, there's some alterations for Prime 4, but at its core, it's still Silex. And so much just genuine effort from artists for this, again, game on the Nintendo DS that really Nintendo was prioritizing because Metroid was big and they wanted to showcase what the DS can do. But I think there's magic there. I think there's magic to when your higher ups are saying, hey, our main priority is to showcase a system. It's to showcase a piece of technology. But you as an artist get to do basically whatever, obviously by being competent, right? Stay within Nintendo's quality seal, but you basically have a pretty good wide range of freeform creative expression within this. And Metroid Prime Hunters is exactly that. It takes Metroid's lake of a universe and turns it into an ocean. Spire comes from the Diamond race that are lava-proof and can climb up walls, but they've mysteriously vanished, making him a tragic hero. Trace is part of the Kricken Empire, which are constantly taking over worlds and are hated by both the Galactic Federation and the Space Pirates. The Space Pirates have Weevil, who is revealed to be a special ops general who also knew Samus as they encountered each other in Metroid 1. Silex hates the Galactic Federation, stole some of their prototype weaponry in terms of the shot coil, the suit, and the Delano 7, and it makes you wonder why the Galactic Federation is trying to recreate Samus's, Chozo alien-based suit. Kandin is kind of Metroid's Frankenstein, and as I played Bioshock 1 and 2, I really would love for Metroid to team up with 2K Games and make a Metroid Bioshock starring Kandin. He's also similar to Mewtwo, where kind of these black market scientists did genetic splicing to make a super soldier. And, he's kind of Ari, but it's interesting. His potential there is that he's chaotic, but he's not fully evil. Noxus is basically he's basically like Metroid's Obi-Wan Kenobi, and I always say that Rundus is kind of like Anakin. We don't know if they knew each other. I do like what Doom Crossing said, that I think that both their species came from a common ancestor. But regardless, Noxus is a pretty strict, pretty firm equivalent of the Jedi, part of the Vo. He's like a monk, right? And it's really cool that he is good like Samus, but they haven't met each other before. So these ambitions for the story mode, again, I just briefly explained all these characters, and then of course there's Samus, who we've known for a long time. She fights for the greater good. She's a bounty hunter, but she's a bounty hunter with a heart. But that's the fun part, is now we have other bounty hunters with different ambitions. I think Spire and Noxus are good-hearted as well, but obviously they didn't know Samus at the time, so they were rivals. And in the adventure mode, you fight them. You fight all of them. And it's fun. It's fun as a kid to play that single-player mode and think, oh wow, there's so much potential with these characters. There's so much I'd like to see more of. Metroid, unfortunately, like Star Fox and F-Zero and Star Tropics, kind of didn't get a lot of media after the 2000s. Star Tropics didn't get any media after Star Tropics 2, but I always put that in there because I think it's another great sci-fi series. But thankfully, Metroid's been getting more games. Regardless, there was quite a time where being a Metroid fan, you waited for a long time, but being a Metroid Prime Hunters fan, the game just turned 20 and we finally see Silex again in a game, not counting Smash Bros. Brawl as a cameo. It would be great to see anime or movies, new games with these characters, because there's so much potential there. I've talked about how great of a game Baldur's Gate 3 is in general, and I think it'd be cool to have a Baldur's Gate-like RPG with the 7 Prime Hunters as your party. There'd be a lot of fun interactions and abilities. Regardless, 6th grade me, 5th grade me, technically, when I got the game, was just already pondering this big universe that Metroid Prime Hunters established. Kind of like Star Wars Episodes 1, 2, and 3. They really expanded upon the universe of Star Wars. And so I think the Prime games did that in general, but I think Prime Hunters really dialed that up with all the potential. And the single player mode, you're in a whole new galaxy. And it kind of reminds me of The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask. You're in a brand new land that's not Hyrule. They both have kind of Lovecraftian horror influences. And so kid me loved that. I love Lovecraftian horror in general. A good old, again, thank you to J-Spot for the Shuma Gorath figure, my favorite comic book villain. And so I didn't even know what Lovecraftian horror was in elementary school, but here I am playing Majora's Mask and Metroid Prime Hunters. And Euron and Doom Crossing told me that Quake 1 has a heavy Lovecraftian horror aesthetic, which obviously played an influence for Metroid Prime Hunters. But it's cool because I was just like, wow, there is some crazy cosmic horror stuff. And I didn't even say cosmic horror in my vocabulary in elementary school, but I understood it. I think that's another thing is, kids, they know when there's a high amount of effort put into media. That's why when people say, just put whatever show on, whatever, kids will eat it up, there's no need to put effort into it. But we feel the effort. That's why Pixar was so legendary. Excuse me. For so many years, is that they Toy Story could have just been just a kids movie, Bug's Life just a kids movie, but they put a lot of creative writing to where families could enjoy it. And so Metroid Prime Hunters reminds me of, they didn't have to put all this detail of Gorilla being this Lovecraftian horror that was alluring the Prime Hunters to come there with the legendary ultimate power, right? But I'm pondering, I wonder what their ambitions are really with their backstory, and I'm exploring this galaxy and wondering, man, I wonder what's going to happen after this. That's good effort. You're getting your player immersed into that world. And, I'm recently playing a 100% playthrough of Prime Hunters, and I'm having fun once again. Single player. I play the multiplayer around once a week, just kind of random battles. It just, to this day, it's so much fun, and there's so much potential there. I see Splatoon's success, and I think they could take the Splatoon competitive marketing team and quite a few Splatoon devs for sure, at least, and make a new multiplayer Metroid game. Hopefully we'll see them soon. I think we'll see all the Prime Hunters this decade in official media again, but hopefully the Metroid ball keeps rolling. And there's so many friends I've made with Metroid Prime Hunters, and I'm glad to see so many new people come across these characters, and it's like a time capsule of these timeless, cool characters, just like the Bionicle lineup. It's awesome. And the Star Wars prequels around that time, you got characters like Darth Maul, Darth Tyrannus, General Grievous. It's just cool. And what a cool way to celebrate 20 years of an awesome game by just saying thanks. Thank you to the people that worked on that game, and I hope we can continue to see great Metroid-related games and media in the near future. I love Mondays.